But what I will say is if you go back to the current US dollar world reserve currency standard we're on now, the US dollar was used to scale gold. The dollar used to be backed by gold. It was a gold note. And so, I could envision a world where I think there's a big difference between, currency in like how I pay for my pizza or how I shop on Amazon and money, which is I need to store value across time and space. I've created something worthwhile to the world.
As shared by Jack Mallers, if we look back at the foundation of the current US dollar reserve currency system, we're reminded that the US dollar was originally used to scale gold. The dollar wasn't just paper, it was a gold-backed note, representing real value tied to a scarce asset. That historical structure is key to understanding what may lie ahead. Looking forward, it's important to recognize the fundamental difference between currency and money. Currency is what we use for day-to-day transactions, buying pizza, shopping on Amazon, paying bills. It's fast, convenient, and widely accepted. Follow the signal, click like and subscribe to keep going.
Most important properties of being human is the self-interested nature that we're all born with. It's a form of Darwinism, is that, by being alive, my main responsibility is myself. It is taking care of myself, ensuring that I continue to exist and find a way to, reproduce and have a family. If I was being, super scientific about it, a human's job is to be born, be self-efficient enough to reproduce and create more of me before I die. And that's how the population grows. And, if you were to chart humanity's growth, that's what it's all about. And so I think the strongest property we all have is that self-interested piece. If we didn't have an innate desire to act in our self-interest, we'd be extinct. We'd be long gone as a species. I mean, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation. So given that that's an innate property of being human, humans will act in their own self-interest for as long as the system allows them to. And so for me, the goal of engineering a better world is, engineering the foundations and systems that we can coexist in that allow natural human nature, but protect, the natural rights that we all want to be born into, like inability to censor me, confiscate me, inflate me, steal from me. And so for me, Bitcoin is an engineered system designed to protect humans from the worst versions of themselves. And Fiat is not. And so I don't fear it whatsoever. And, every single year that goes on, I think people become more in awe of what Satoshi created, because it really is a system that prevents humans from violating the very rights that they themselves want to be born with. And I don't fear it whatsoever, as long as we've built Bitcoin the right way and it is able to achieve what it's designed to.
I guess convinced you to give your time now to building this company.
Yeah. So, as we kind of talked about, I've been in Bitcoin for a long time. Early 2013 is when I count for myself. So I'm coming up on, full 13 years. There weren't that many people in Bitcoin all the way back a decade ago. One of the rare were the Tether guys. And, before Tether, which I knew them before that, Bitfinex. And so we've been friends. I think people should know that. And, I know that they've been a hot topic for years. To me, they've always been smart Bitcoiners that have been successful and on the right side of history. And so we've been friends. And I think this has evolved just like any natural project that I've been a part of, which is, hey, what's the best we can do for Bitcoin? What's going on? How are people pushing the needle and pushing this forward? For example, my co-founders were very involved in El Salvador and my journey there. And since El Salvador has made Bitcoin legal tender and invited companies to come build there, Tether is the biggest, most involved company in the country by far. So we've overlapped on similar projects, whether it's open source Bitcoin development, El Salvador, just ways that we can push the world in what we believe is the right direction. And so 21 is kind of the latest iteration of that, where, it's really like a Telegram group chat, but imagine a proverbial campfire, right? Where friends just talk about nonsense. Sometimes it's gossip, sometimes it's jokes, sometimes it's real ideas. And I would say we were so inspired by Saylor and MicroStrategy. And as Bitcoiners, one of the rare properties of this project that is Bitcoin is that we're all on the same team. And I think Bitcoin inspires the most creative thinking in the world because it's the freest market. Anyone can have an idea and anyone can test that idea in the market, and virtually no one can get in your way, which is super rare contrasted against other things. And so Saylor had this like unbelievably creative idea, and he tested it in the market, and it like more than worked. And it was like, wow, this is amazing. And as Bitcoiners, we're just like so thrilled and inspired and like, well, we own a bunch of Bitcoin and our businesses are building on Bitcoin. So this is the coolest thing ever, and still is, by the way. Michael's a friend of mine. He's great.
One of the most fundamental traits of being human is our self-interest, a form of evolutionary Darwinism. Simply put, our core responsibility is to survive, reproduce, and pass on our genes. If humans didn't act in their own self-interest, we wouldn't be here today. When we think about building a better world, it starts with acknowledging that humans will always act in their self-interest, as long as the system allows it. The real challenge, then, is to design systems that align with human nature while protecting our essential rights. The right not to be censored, inflated, stolen from, or controled. Bitcoin is exactly that, a system engineered to protect humanity from the worst versions of itself. Fiat systems enable abuse. Bitcoin constrains it. Every year that passes, more people recognize how visionary Satoshi's design really was. For anyone who wants real privacy and total control over their crypto activity, I recommend GoLogin. You can easily add a profile and choose the proxy or country you want. Click Run. After you run and activate it, you can sign into your accounts. Your browser location, IP address, hardware, and software are now protected. Aside from the United States, you can also use it in the United Kingdom or any other country. 2 gigabytes of free residential proxies included, safer and faster connections for crypto transactions on any platform. You can also choose the proxy you want. Your IP address is now safe. They won't be able to locate or find out your original IP address anymore. You can also invite your team members so all accounts are secured, especially if you have someone you trust to access important accounts. If you want total privacy and better control over your crypto activity, GoLogin is perfect for you. You can try it for free. Click the link in the description.
My favorite joke is when people say, what if Satoshi shows up and sells his million Bitcoin? And my answer is, I'll buy it. If he crashes the price all the way down to $1, guess who'll be buying at $1? Me, because listen, in a truly free market, what the market is telling us is Bitcoin is worth $2 trillion to the world today. And just because someone has to force sell and puke a bunch of Bitcoin out in the market because they exceeded their means and was irresponsible financially, doesn't make Bitcoin on net any less valuable to the world. The way I think about Bitcoin is it's the hardest money mankind's ever conceived of, and it's worth something to planet Earth. And if someone has to sell it, unfortunately, I'll happily buy it. And so I never get emotional or defeated by price swings. To me, Bitcoin's either going to fail or it's going to be the most valuable way to store wealth in human history. And the numbers between there aren't that interesting to me. So, if the price goes down a little bit because, someone over-levered themselves, sorry for your loss, but happy for my gain. It doesn't, I think all of these companies and their use of leverage is only a problem, or borrowing money, debt is only a problem when you exceed your means, right? If you need the Bitcoin price to be a certain level, or you need, the folks you're borrowing from to have certain terms, or else you're screwed, that's exceeding your means. You're living outside of your means. And so for me and my businesses, we're never living outside of our means, but it doesn't mean borrowing money or debt is a bad thing. That's how New York was built. Manhattan was built by someone buying scarce land, borrowing against the land to build a building, borrowing against a building to build a restaurant, borrowing against a restaurant to build the club on top of it. That's how you acquire scarce, desirable property, and you never get rid of it. And so the idea that people are going to finance their way to accumulating the scarcest property known to man, totally reasonable. But if someone exceeds their means and has to puke out their Bitcoin into my lap, sorry for your loss, happy for my gain.
As Jack Mallers shared, one of his favorite jokes is when people say, what if Satoshi comes back and sells his million Bitcoin? His answer, I'll buy it, even if the price crashes to $1. Jack's buying because in a free market, Bitcoin is already worth $1 trillion. That's what the world values it at today. A forced seller doesn't change the fundamentals. To him, Bitcoin is the hardest money humanity has ever conceived, and its value to the world remains intact even during panic sell-offs. He doesn't get emotional over price swings. Bitcoin will either go to zero or become the most important store of value in human history. The noise in between, it doesn't matter. Jack also defends the use of debt and leverage, as long as it's within your means. It's not borrowing that's the problem, it's overextending. Needing Bitcoin to be a certain price to survive, that's poor risk management. He compares it to how New York was built. Borrow against scarce land to build. Borrow against that to grow. Smart leverage builds wealth. Bitcoin is the most scarce asset known to man, so financing to acquire it makes sense. What do you think? Drop a comment and click the next video.